Manana, friends, the world will still be there. A world of suffering, a world of care. Today we'll dance and tell the universe there's love and song for everyone. Fling joy like roses on the laughing wind. Send melodies upon the air. Tell everyone that joy is theirs alone, who smile at life and call it fair. Fling joy like roses on the laughing wind. Send melodies upon the air. Tell everyone that joy is theirs alone, who smile at life and call it fair. Fling joy like roses on the laughing wind. Send melodies upon the air. Tell everyone that joy is theirs alone, who smile at life and call it fair. Manana, friends, the world will still be there. A world of suffering, a world of care. Today we'll dance and tell the universe there's love and song for everyone. Fling joy like roses on the laughing wind. Send melodies upon the air. Tell everyone that joy is theirs alone, who smile at life and call it fair. Fling joy like roses on the laughing wind. Send melodies upon the air. Tell everyone that joy is theirs alone, who smile at life and call it fair. Fling joy like roses on the laughing wind. Send melodies upon the air. Tell everyone that joy is theirs alone, who smile at life and call it fair.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to those online. Welcome to those here with us in person. Welcome to the last Sunday service of 2024. This week's reading is actually next week's reading, except it's week 53 and there's only 52 Sundays in this year. But we wanted to do this reading. We took the liberty of switching it because this reading only comes around every 5 or 6 years, depending on if January 1st falls on a Sunday or not, or in a leap year on a Saturday. So my name's Bryan, if I haven't said that already, and if you don't know me, and this is my wife Carmenza. So we're pleased to be here with you. This is called the Last Commandment. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus Christ, near the end of the Gospel according to St. John, gave as his last commandment that we love one another. In John 13:34 and 35, he said, "A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples." And again in John 15:12, he said, "This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you." How did he love us? Personally, yes, in the sense that he loved and forever loves each one of us for who we are, and not abstractly. But impersonally also, in the sense that the Christ, the divine consciousness, is not conscious of itself as separate from us. He loves us not only for, but as our very self. His love is a manifestation of infinity, loving us as expressions of infinity. He does not see us as we see ourselves. He forever sees in us our divine potential. Paramahansa Yogananda made a very similar statement to the monks very shortly before his own departure from his body. Respect one another as I respect you. His use of the word respect instead of love was deliberate. He wanted to emphasize for them the importance of impersonal love and friendship from God for God. Worldly people do not understand that in impersonal love, there is much deeper love than exists in personal love. Impersonal love is expansive, not contractive. One day, the master was going for an outing, and the monks were helping him into his car. Yogananda had been having difficulty with his knees. He remarked, "You are all so kind to me with your many attentions." "Oh, sir," they replied, "it is your kindness to which we respond." The master smiled sweetly. "God is helping God," he said. That's his drama. The second commandment Jesus quoted from the ancient scriptures, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," explains what he meant by his new and last commandment. We should, he said, love all as reflections of our own very self. Thus, Paramahansa Yogananda said also, "When I am gone, only love can take my place." The Bhagavad Gita describes a dialogue between Krishna and his disciple Arjuna. Thus, the other disciples are not part of the scene. The dialogue is internal and symbolizes the dialogue between the soul and God. Yet in it, Sri Krishna describes the way to supreme wisdom and supreme love. He says, "The serene self, being one with Brahman, neither grieves nor yearns. The same to all, he attains supreme devotion to me." That sameness toward all is the manifestation of pure love, impersonal in the sense of selfless. By that love, one attains supreme love for God alone. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. This is such a beautiful teaching. And really the difference between God's consciousness and our consciousness is merely that God doesn't see any separation between us and himself. And we constantly think of that separation, or constantly have that in the background of our thoughts and consciousness. It's interesting to me that John was the one who recorded this, and I think it was near the end of Jesus' time on earth. It may have been at the Last Supper. And at the Last Supper, John refers to himself as the one who Jesus loved. This is very interesting. And sometimes in pictures of the Last Supper or paintings of the Last Supper, you'll see John resting his head on Jesus' shoulder. And he's not saying, "I'm the one who loves Jesus." He's saying, "I'm the one whom Jesus loves." And this is a really nice approach, a perspective that I think we can learn from and borrow from, because he's saying that I am loved by Jesus, and he's taking on this very thing that Christ is asking his disciples to take on, which is to love each other the way that he loves you, that he doesn't see you as separate. It's very easy to have the delusion that we're separate. And the other nice thing about it is it gives you an in to any to kind of usurp any kind of feelings that you might have about not deserving of love, being ashamed, not being good enough for God's love or for Christ's love or for Master's love. And it just short circuits that. And it allows us to see ourselves as he sees us. He always sees us as we are, not as we see ourselves. He always sees us in terms of our divine potential, like Swami said here. So this is a simple difference, but of course it's held down by the delusion that we have that we are not connected to all, and that our love is not somehow derived from and connected to all. I was reminded by one of our tech-savvy gurubhais this summer who said that, when we use our cell phones, when we text someone or we call someone, we tend to think I'm texting you and it's going to your phone, and or I'm calling you and I'm calling your phone directly and personally and privately. But in fact, that's not what happens. The signal goes to a cell tower, and often from there to many other cell towers, and it's transmitted from that cell tower back to our recipient's friend. And so we have this delusion, it's pretty harmless delusion, I think, that our text messages and our phone calls are direct to the person that we're calling or texting. And this makes it seem, again, I think it's pretty harmless, unless you're up to no good and you're doing something criminal. It's not that the content of your text or phone calls, but everything is being recorded in data centers. It's not in the cell tower itself, but in data centers, what your location is, where you're, who you're calling, how long that phone call is, or who you're texting. So it is with our consciousness that we tend to have this delusion that our love is direct or personal, or it has only to do with the person that we love, whether it's our parents or whatever. Yogananda said that if you want to know God, that you must not isolate your love, that you should instead join your love with the higher consciousness, with the divine. Just as we worship God in many forms, or we can worship God as Father or Mother or Master, we can also use our love, the different kinds of love relationships that we have, to find our way to that perspective of this is not just our personal love, it is actually the love of God. Master said, all of our love in its native purity. See, this is where purification comes in. All of our love in its native purity is the love of God. All of our love. So he talks about father love, mother love, the love of the child for the parent. He talks about sibling love. He talks about a master and a servant love. And he says, I want to focus a minute because I've had the absolute great good karma to be able to be a father for the last 20 some years, 23 years. And it's another opportunity. I mean, I have siblings, I have a mother and a father, I have an amazing wife. And yet each of these forms of our human relationships and human loves are a little bit different and have a little bit different strengths to them. I remember when I was about 7 years old, and 7 or 8 years old, and I had a pretty bad tummy ache. I don't know what the cause of it was, but I was sitting in the bathroom, kind of doubled over with pain. And my daddy came to me. My pa is what we call people. He's from the Cumberlands and the Appalachia, from the coal mining regions. He's a hillbilly. And my pa came into the bathroom and sat down next to me, and he said, "I wish that I could take all that pain out of your stomach and put it into mine." And this was a moment of divine love. This is what masters do. They take on the karma of their disciples. But for that moment, I don't think it helped with my pain, but it certainly helped with my suffering. And that was my pa connecting to divine love in that moment. And it uplifted both of us. Master says that God gives to parents. Actually, he says God makes parents love their children through his gift of love to the parents. You know, this is mind-blowing because it's so hard for us to not think of it as something that's coming from us. The relationships that we have are all opportunities for us to tap into and remember and base our love on the love of the divine. Master said that our parental love, our conjugal love, our friendship love, these are all gateways in which to enter the kingdom of divine love. And so we can't put them down. We have to think about them, and we have to amplify them and pull on this divine love that's really the source of our love. You know, conjugal love or romantic love is kind of the dominant, in this culture, it's kind of the dominant form of love that when love gets talked about. Gosh, you see all these Christmas movies that are mass produced, and they're not necessarily about Christmas or Christ consciousness. They're about romantic love. And it's interesting that Master talks in here, or Swami reports that Master said to the monks soon before his passing about respecting each other, that you should respect each other as I have respected you. And Swami many times said that in a marriage, love is not, as most people think, love is not the cornerstone of a marriage. Because over years and a lifetime, love will wax and wane. But he said respect is the cornerstone of this romantic love relationship of a marriage. Because when you have respect, you have the basis for cooperation and friendship. Friendship love is perhaps the freest form of love relationships that we can have. Because every other relationship, mother to child, father to child, sibling relationships, they all, to a certain extent, don't fully have your choice to be in those relationships or to have those relationships. So there's always a little tent, even with mother love, you know, the causeless, as Master said, the causeless love, affection, attraction of the mother towards the baby. Even that has a small tinge of obligation. But friendship, and especially friendship as in those of us who are sharing friendship in God, sort of have the cleanest, clearest path for being able to channel this love, because we entirely choose it. We choose to be gurubhais. We choose to be the ones who are especially seeking each other as supports for really the most important job of our lives, which is to find God. We're approaching New Year's, and I've been thinking about New Year's resolutions. And I was thinking, I've been trying out for the last few days adapting this statement by St. John, I am the one who Christ loves. And for me, first it was, I am the one that Master loves. But then if I say the one, it kind of starts to niggle a little bit like, well, maybe I'm the one, and that means the rest of you aren't the one, or something like that. So I've changed it a little bit to being just, I am a one. I am one whom Master loves. And you might try that out, or if Jesus is your guru, I'm one who Jesus loves. Because that's the shortcut around trying to connect with that divine love, which sees us differently than we see ourselves. May we all have a good new year as we bless ourselves and each other.
In the Old Testament comes that command about love thy neighbor as you love thyself. And I ponder that all through my life. You know, when I was a little girl, it's like, well, do I love myself well enough to love others that way? Or just my neighbors? You know, it's sort of like, is my love impartial enough to be able to love well? And, you know, we ourselves are more critical to ourselves, and do I extend that criticism to others? You know, so it was always trying to figure it out, you know. I was very, very glad when Jesus updated that command, you know, because he gave us a road map, you know, because he says to love each other as he has loved us. And so that, to me, I have guidelines to do that. And Jesus, as the man, is reported that he served all the time. He was serving all the time. He healed both physically, mentally, spiritually. He fed. He was always doing feeding, healing, talking, uplifting, you know, and the final, you know, he sacrificed his own life to uplift, you know, everybody. And as the Christ consciousness, we all have examples of that all the time. All the time in our lives, we have examples of how God loves us. Even though there are people who even question the existence of God because God doesn't grant us all that we want, or he lets suffering happen, and so then it takes it that therefore God doesn't love us. But all of us, and throughout history, there's examples of great love that God has manifested through us. In April of 1994, it began in Rwanda, a genocide of one tribe to another. The Hutus killed the Tutsis, and they killed about a million Tutsis in a matter of 3 months. And there's a young woman who wrote a book about her experience during that time, Immaculée Ligabiza. She wrote this book that is called Left to Tell. And in that book, she talks about that all of a sudden, the president got killed and the new president was a Hutu, and he was commanding every Hutu in the country to go and kill every Tutsi that came in their path. And they did so. And they was just killing. And so this young woman went into hiding. A Hutu minister who was her pastor in the community hid her and 6 other women in a bathroom, a 3x6 bathroom. 7 women were there for 3 months. And the only time that they got fed is when the pastor could save scraps of the food, because he didn't want to be discovered, because any Hutu who helped Tutsi was also killed. And so then he will save food, and in the middle of the night, he will come and bring him to the bathroom. And they could only flash the toilet when the bathroom on the other side of that bedroom was flashed. And it was a bathroom in the minister's room upstairs. And she sat there and she said she could feel the energy of the evil energy that was going through the country was very palpable. It was just like it made her hate. She said it was like this hate and this anger and wanting to kill people. It was just so palpable that she could feel it. And the only way that she wouldn't feel it is to pray. She prayed to God. She was a very devoted Catholic all her life. And she just started praying. And she said she prayed and meditated for all her waking hours, about 15 to 20 hours a day. She prayed. And she had her rosary with her. Catholics have, like a mala, and they just pray the rosary. And in the midst of talking about dire fears and colossal suffering, here it is this, they couldn't talk to each other because nobody, they were looking for her because she was a member, her family was a prominent member in the community. And they were just, and so she could hear outside people calling her name. And she could hear people being killed outside. And in the midst of all of that, she found solace in the heart. She said it was sort of like going into a sacred space where God's love and joy, it was there. She just like, it was a totally different world. It's sort of like, she said, even up to now, she has become a world. She made it her life world to go around and talk about love and forgiveness. And she still remembers that time in that bathroom was the best time of her life and the worst. But she kept on praying to God, help me she was trying to figure out how to think about this. How do you think about these people that are doing these atrocities, And she kept on praying to God, help me to figure it out. Help me, give me a perspective to deal with this. And she prayed and prayed and prayed. And there was at one time that she heard all of a sudden this young child crying and crying and crying and crying. And she figured that maybe her parents had just been killed and she was left. And she cried and cried for a day and a night, and then it was getting lower and lower and lower, and then all of a sudden she stopped crying. And then she said to God, how can I forgive people who do this? And then she said she heard God's voice just as if he was chatting with her right in front of her. And he said, you are all my children. And in that moment, she was able to shift it for her because she said, oh, children I can understand. There's children who do cruel things. And they're going to get punished severely for the cruelties, and they don't understand how much they're hurting us. They don't understand how much they're hurting God, and they don't understand how much they're hurting themselves. And she started praying to God for their forgiveness, and that God will forgive them, and that they could awaken to the stuff that they were doing before they died, because they were going to get punished so severely. And then again, God spoke to her, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they do." And she saw after that night, she was able to sleep the most peaceful that she had. I think it had been a month into it. And then she said after that, she was able to, because all that time she was struggling with hating them and not wanting to hate them, you know. And then after that, she was able to just relax and sleep for the first time. After this whole happened, she was brought to the, all her family was killed. Her parents, both of her brothers. There was one brother who survived, but he was outside the country. And after that, she was brought to the people who have actually done the killing of her family, and they asked her, "What should we do with them?" Because they were asking people, how should we kill them? And then she says, if we kill them, then when is it going to stop? When is the killing going to stop? Now we're going to kill them, and then they will kill us, and then, until all of us are gone. And she turned to them and says, "I forgive you." And people are like, "What? Why would you do that?" And she says, "That's the best that we can do right now, is to forgive." And that's what she has made her world mission, is to teach people that we need to forgive each other and to love each other. She wrote a second book after that, and is Led by Faith. And she went around throughout all her country and asking people to forgive. And she found out there was miracles all over that happened during those 3 months. And she wrote down all kinds of miracles that happened. It's very beautiful. She's since written about 5 other books. And she lives in the United States. And this is a like a horrific example of when to forgive. But it's so often we don't like our friends, our neighbors, because they didn't talk to us nicely, or they they talk too much, or they do this or they do that. And it's so easy to forget that we are all brothers and sisters, and we are all made of love. We are all, and there's a command that when we love each other like He has loved us, we will be known as His disciples. And we see that, when people are very nice and loving, we say, "Oh, she's just such an angel," or that person is a saint because, the way that they love everybody and they do so many things. And so it's something that we can strive for. We are His disciples, and that to love one another, to forgive one another, it will be a way to be known as His disciples. Swami said that one of the things that he loved the most and was most impressed about Master is the way that he respected people above all. And he taught people, like sometimes people wanted to lash back at somebody who disrespected Master, and then he would say, "Don't. We don't want to disrespect others because they disrespected us." He just wanted people, he always taught people to just not, if you found out that somebody made a mistake and you needed to say something, just go personally and talk with them gently, but not to make it publicly, not to humiliate anybody because of their mistakes. And he just respected everybody for who they were. So that's the personal. And the impersonal is because we are all God serving God, There was one thing that Swami says in one of the daily, what is it called? The daily book that we talk about. Yeah, living wisely, living well. In one of them, he says, at the minute that you see any disturbance of your heart in any situation, just bring God right away. Like, don't let it go past like that disturbance. Just bring God right in that feeling, so then you can stop. Because anytime that you have let fear or dislike to somebody else, then you let God go away from you. That you just keep it right in the center, and then you will always be able to love and to know that somebody is doing something, a mistake, not because they want to hurt you, but because they don't know better at that moment in time that they're hurting you. And they will know. I mean, we all figure it out later. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, you know. But that's when we keep God in our center, then we will always remember to love. So let us, you know, like Bryan says, in this coming year, to just remember that command, you know, to love each other like He loves us. And to be in that way His disciples always.
Okay, we'll have an offering.
A poor little girl walking in the cold, her clothing all tattered and thin, spied a rich man standing outside a church, outside a church, outside a church. Spied a rich man standing outside a church, the service about to begin. Please, sir, she said, hear an orphan child. The cold winds of winter have come. I've no place to live, not in all the world. Oh, help me find work in some home. The rich man frowned, don't you hear that hymn? Good people have gathered in prayer. It's a day for worship, impious girl. Oh, impious girl, oh, impious girl. It's a day for worship, impious girl. Don't speak here of earthly affairs. He turned then and entered the holy church. The girl wandered down the cold street, and there all at once she beheld a small boy, no jacket, no shoes for his feet. His clothing was shabby, as worn as her own. He shivered against a closed door. Ah, at last he cried, none will take me in. Take me in, none will take me in. Ah, at last he cried, none will take me in. Though I'm starving and cold, for I'm poor. Seeing him, she cried, how I feel for you. It's bitter with no friends to live. Here, please take my shawl, it's all I can spare, though it's shameful so little to give. She wrapped him all up in the flimsy cloth and kissed his cold forehead and smiled. Suddenly a warmth like a summer breeze, summer breeze, like a summer breeze. Suddenly a warmth like a summer breeze encircled this poor girl and child, and a tender voice said, "My daughter, I'm here. No more shall you weep without friends, for in yonder church there's no love like yours. Those with pure hearts, their needs I attend." My child, all men's sorrows would turn to joy if they knew that to share is no loss. For its kindness broadens the human heart, the human heart, the human heart. For its kindness broadens the human heart. I know I who died on the cross. Worship means but love, and my love you found by your gift to me here in the cold. And she found their clothes were now woolen and warm, and the shawl was now spun of fine gold.